Volkan, let's start with you first. You conducted a research. Do you think this earthquake was the last one? Or was it an earthquake that could be a precursor to other upcoming earthquakes?
Let's start from the end. It was not the last earthquake. There is still a risk of a major earthquake in the Marmara region, particularly in Istanbul. And this earthquake risk seems to be slightly higher now compared to the past. But this doesn't mean the earthquake will happen right now. So that's the summary and conclusion.
What did you see? In yesterday's event, it's been a bit more than 24 hours since the earthquake. You also published quite a few articles. What are you explaining here? What did you observe?
Now, here's the situation. This earthquake is the main big earthquake we were expecting. It occurred on the fault line where we expect the Great Marmara earthquake. How do we know this? We can see from seismographs what type of faulting caused this earthquake. Therefore, when we looked at them, we saw that this earthquake occurred on the fault where we expect the big earthquake. And it appears to be on the unlocked part of this fault. What does this mean? When you look, you see a single fault within the Marmara Sea, but not every part of this fault behaves the same way. Some parts are completely locked. For example, the things you see on the map with circles are the earthquakes we've experienced since yesterday. You can see that they are very close to Istanbul. That is, they are happening around 10 to 15 kilometers from Büyükçekmece and generally close to Istanbul. So don't think of it as a distant place just because it's within the Marmara Sea. It's as far from you as any district of Istanbul, meaning it's close to the airport.
These fault lines are 20 kilometers away from the coast.
At most, they are close to the airport. Let me put it that way, to every part of Istanbul. Therefore, it's actually a close threat in terms of Istanbul. The critical point here is this. Under normal conditions, when such a large earthquake occurs on a fault where an earthquake is expected, the entire fault could have ruptured. The question of why the entire fault did not rupture is a scientific question. One explanation for this, which we also mentioned in our article, could be the following. Not every segment of the fault behaves the same way. One segment of the fault is completely locked. It is not causing an earthquake on the fault there, but it continues to accumulate energy. This map shows it very well now. Now the faults we show in red, you know it says Marmara Fault. That is a locked fault. That means there hasn't been an earthquake on it for a long time, and energy continues to accumulate there.
If it happens, it will happen in those red areas we see. If there is an earthquake, a big earthquake.
That's correct. The yellow section is where the earthquake occurred yesterday. This yellow section is partly locked and partly a fault segment that can slip without causing an earthquake. If you look at the earthquakes that have occurred since yesterday, you see that they fill the entire yellow section. What does this mean? It means that right now, the earthquake has most likely filled that yellow section, and hopefully, it will be a long time before another one occurs. But we assess that the upcoming earthquake will occur in this locked fault segment.
Okay, now it's locked. Let's open it up a little bit. What do you mean by locked? What does locked mean?
Now like this. Can I show it with my hand? I'm showing it with my hand.
Of course.
Now, what does a fault mean?
Choose volcans, select volcans nearby. Yes.
Now, what does a fault mean? There is the Earth's crust. The Earth's crust has cracked down to the asthenosphere, that is to the magma, and there is something in this crack. There is such a surface.
Yes.
In a locked fault, this surface does not move. It doesn't shift at all. Therefore, earthquakes do not occur there. However, If you look at the map, you see that there is a tension, a bending in the areas outside of that fault. It's like the bow and arrow issue. You know, when you pull the arrow, the bow stretches like that.
Yes, yes.
But when you look at the middle of the bow, there is no movement, right?
Yes, yes.
That's exactly how a locked fault is. When you look at the middle, there is no movement. But when you look around it, you can calculate and see that tension. Now that's what the locked fault means. It accumulates energy and cannot release this energy because it doesn't cause any earthquakes. In other words, it can't discharge it. But in other faults, the tap fault is slippery. Because it's slippery, small earthquakes occur on it as tension builds up. When there are small earthquakes, and if this slipperiness is too much, it sometimes can't accumulate a lot of energy.
I understand. That's a good thing. So the accumulation of energy is a bad thing. I'm understanding correctly, right?
You're right.
Because, brother, I mean, you geologists have a separate language, so we need to decipher it to understand. Because you speak with your own things, of course, in a scientific jargon. It seems very normal to you. Since your whole life revolves around this, we ordinary people don't understand. I mean, tension is coming now, so is tension a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Actually, everyone has turned into a professor in the past 2 days. They are watching these broadcasts intensely. But as you said, aftershocks have continued since yesterday. And from this moment on, we don't know this anymore. I mean, the general view, the general prediction among geologists and earth scientists, if we don't count Mr. Dushamasoy, Moachu, is that this earthquake could actually be a trigger for a future, God forbid, Istanbul earthquake. But we don't know when it will happen. Am I saying it correctly? So to summarize.
Yes, that's correct in summary.
I mean, it could happen tomorrow. It could happen now, or it could happen in 50 years.
It could have happened yesterday too. I mean, it might not have remained as a magnitude 6.2. It could have been the big earthquake we are expecting because these are on the same fault line. So, how should we describe it? Let me put it this way. You're driving in traffic. There are two cars. Now, the front of the car is a bit dented.
Yes.
This is continuing slowly. So there's such a situation. Now we're in the same car right now.
We're still continuing in that car. Yes. Well, Volkan, is there anything else you'd like to add? We also need to discuss this.
Apart from this, I can add the following. Yesterday, we got caught in the earthquake. Actually, we got caught a bit amateurishly. So we actually need to make a correction there. Now, normally, when we experience an earthquake, what we need to do is quickly get under something like a table and ride out the main waves, the main tremor there, so that nothing falls on us. Because the first waves are mild waves. Under normal circumstances, we should get under the tables. And after the earthquake passes, wait at least 10 to 15 seconds. And then carefully leave the buildings after all the destructive waves have passed. We were a bit confused there.
But we were confused. Why were we confused? Because we were on air. And the reason I was confused was this. Should I continue the broadcast or stop? Because not continuing the broadcast in such moments also has different consequences because you create a big panic. Now, people are watching us live. If I suddenly threw myself to the ground, it would have a different effect on people. In fact, later, I wished I hadn't left my place at all. So we were in doubt, like, should we? After that, we went outside to continue the broadcast. We evacuated the entire team. We went out and continued the broadcast. So we took a break for 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, we continued the broadcast from where we left off. Yes, you're right about what you said, like next to a cupboard, under something. As you said, they always provide these earthquake trainings. But Volkan, I have a bit of hesitation there. Honestly, I can't fully trust the building stock in Turkey. I mean, like you said, yes, in San Francisco. Because I know in San Francisco, you build a house and get 50 reports. Earthquake report, some other report, this report, that report. Someone comes to inspect, leaves, and then comes back to inspect again. Now here, they built the apartments in the 70s. Then it's like, let it go and let God take care of it. Unfortunately, we are really in such a situation. Since it didn't give me much confidence, this thought crossed my mind. But yesterday, we were still one of the few teams that managed to broadcast very calmly at those moments. And we did all this under our own conditions. I mean, not with big studios or anything like that, but at home or whatever. Under these conditions, you went down in front of the apartment. I went down too. And that's how we did it. But thank you very much for your warnings. You're right, indeed.
The point is correct. We don't trust the buildings here and actually don't know how we should behave. You're right about that. And actually, when you look at it, the literature isn't very rich on this subject either. I mean, it's still a bit unclear whether there's more damage when you go out or when you stay in. But that's a general thing.
Let me put it this way. A while ago, I was looking for a house, checking out different houses. For example, I'm talking about the most expensive houses on the Bosphorus. Don't get me wrong, I'm talking about the neighborhoods. I go and take a look. I ask, does this building have earthquake safety? They say, for example, we don't have it checked. They don't have it checked. Because as you know, if it's not safe, you have to evacuate, reinforce it, and so on. Why? Because they don't have the means and so on. There are hundreds of thousands of buildings right now. I mean, I'm not talking about the newly built ones, but let me ask you, the viewers, do you feel that the building you live in is safe? Can you say, yes, the building you live in is safe? I think very few people in Turkey can experience this feeling, maybe in new buildings or something. For example, I believe our office is safe because it's a new building constructed by a very experienced construction company. They did whatever, but since there is no standard in the country, I must admit that, as I said, these things need to be done like in Japan. For example, yesterday, 151 people jumped out of windows. Now, why are these people jumping out of windows? Well, no one does in Japan. We will get to that topic shortly. Because the person says that in Japan, there is a standard for this. If I'm entering this building, if the government or the municipality has given it an occupancy permit, it means they have checked it. We saw what happened in the last Bolu fire, didn't we? That's very true. That's why I'm experiencing such a dilemma. I really don't feel very comfortable there. Thank you very much, Volkan. By the way, Volkan, I have one more question. You participated in many broadcasts yesterday. Did you join TRT World? I guess you had an interview there as well. This interest in the earthquake is a bit like the aftershocks of the earthquake, isn't it? You are very experienced now when an earthquake happens. People start calling you. How many days does this interest last?
2 days.
That's it. After 2 days, everyone goes back to their lives as if nothing happened. They forget.
And I mean, do this, for example, tomorrow, this topic probably won't be discussed at all. If there isn't another earthquake or something similar, it might not be in your broadcast schedule tomorrow.
Yes, it's a strange psychology. I attribute it a bit to the fact that people prefer not to see what makes them feel in danger. I mean, instead of confronting and solving it, it's somewhat suitable for Eastern societies. Ignoring it is more like it. They know that the building isn't strong in many places right now, but they don't look.
There's nothing that can be done.
Even if they looked, there's nothing they could do. They don't have the money, the means, or the resources. So they say, let's pretend it doesn't exist, ignoring not looking up. I mean, when you look at it, that psychology is there. Okay, Volkan, thank you very much. Thank you.
I thank you.